Gen X was raised without applause. Millennials were told they were special. But Gen Z was raised by an algorithm, and the algorithm doesn't love you back. For the first time in human history, a generation grew up with the internet not as a tool, but as a parent. It rewired how they think, who they are, and how they feel. This is the psychology of Gen Z. Before Gen Z could read, they were swiping. Before they had friends, they had followers. The smartphone became a pacifier, and the feed became their first mirror. Every like, every view, every comment trained their developing brains to seek external validation above all else. Neuroscientists call it variable reward conditioning, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. But for Gen Z, the slot machine was always in their pocket, always on, always watching. Psychologist Jean Twenge found that depression in teen girls spiked 58% between 2011 and 2020. The exact window smartphones went mainstream. That's not a coincidence. That's a generation being shaped by a system that profits from their insecurity. Previous generations figured out who they were in private. Gen Z figured out who they were in public, on camera, in real time, for an audience of strangers. They became performers of identity before they had one. TikTok gave them a stage at age 12. Every post was an audition, every comment section, a verdict. The result? Psychologists call it identity diffusion, a fractured sense of self where the online persona and the real person become impossible to separate. Gen Z cycles through aesthetics, politics, and personalities at a speed no generation has before. Not because they're unstable, but because the platform rewards reinvention. The algorithm punishes stagnation. You must always be evolving, always be more, always be content. And somewhere in that performance, the actual self goes quiet. Gen Z is the most anxious generation ever recorded. Not because they're weak, but because they were handed a world on fire and a phone to document it. By age 16, the average Gen Zer had consumed content about mass shootings, climate collapse, economic ruin, and political chaos. Algorithmically served, personalized, relentless. Psychologists call it doom-scrolling anxiety.